Hi everyone. Thank you very much for asking me to speak today about our experiences of applying for an environmental permit to enable us to undertake channel maintenance on main rivers. Just a bit of background, we're tenant farmers on the Leverhulme estate, which is between Formby and Maghull. It's an area of reclaimed mossland and is crisscrossed with a large network of drainage channels and sluices. There are 5 farmers on the estate who have varying number of ditches and streams which are classed as main rivers. The term main river is a bit misleading. It conjures up an image of a nice wide, broad, fast-flowing stretch of water. A lot of it are 2-metre ditches, some of which sometimes just have a puddle in the bottom. So it's quite a misleading definition. But it came to discussions with the EA about flood management and pumping stations. It came to light that new legislation meant that we would need to apply for a permit to undertake any work on main rivers on the estate, and it would cost us just short of £1,000 each to apply for one. After we'd picked ourselves up off the floor with a look of horror on our faces, our landlords kindly agreed that they would pay for the permit, and we could apply for an estate-wide permit rather than individual ones. Then that would then enable the tenants on the estate to undertake essential maintenance works. And it was also made clear to us that continuing without a permit wasn't an option, because if we were found to have done any work on any main rivers on the estate, the first step would be to be prosecuted. In recent years, due to budget cuts, there's been a steady decline in work, which was previously undertaken by the EA on some of the most important watercourses running through the estate, including some of the main sluices. As a result, we've seen large increases in flooding, not only of farmland and crops, but of local roads and residential properties, with weed-clogged channels resulting in water quite often, at times of heavy rainfall, running backwards and overtopping. With it being highly unlikely that this work would ever be undertaken in the future by the EA again, it was essential that we obtained a licence. So I agreed to undertake the job of gathering all the relevant information required for the application. It wasn't an easy task. It was quite a steep learning curve and involved quite a lot of information gathering and a lot of highlighter pens. I have a large collection of highlighter pens now, and I spent a very long evening mapping each main river that existed on the estate onto an estate-wide map with grid reference points for each section. We also discovered that there were a few anomalies in the EA's classification, in that one main river had been filled in 30 years ago and no longer existed. So that could do with a bit of updating. The application involved writing an environmental risk assessment, method of works, estate management system plan, and a detailed table of works for each section of watercourse, which included the length of the section, upstream and downstream grid references, what action would be taken on that, whether it was weed removal or sediment removal, and how frequently that would take place. The EA advised us to include everything that we might potentially want to do. So if the need arose, we wouldn't need to apply for any further additions to the permit. One example of this is a section which leads up to a pumping station, taking water from the sewage treatment works. The EA normally de-weed this in July, but occasionally there have been odd years where it's weeded up, the de-weeding machines got delayed on another job, and what happens is this water takes the priority, so it then doesn't take any water from the drainage ditches and the sluices going into it, which causes everything to back up, because basically the whole water in the area is running through the estate. So it becomes quite desperate that this section of main river is de-weeded. So we included that in our permit so that we could de-weed the channel if it wasn't done by the EA and the weed was impeding the flow. So it just gives us a bit of a backup at times when the system sort of falls down. After a few months of going back and forth and providing additional information, we were finally granted a 10-year permit in February. So far, it seems to be working okay. Each farmer has an information pack detailing all they need to do to undertake the work. And at the end of the year, all the details of the work that's been done will be collated, so we have an annual record of works on each stretch that we've done something on. Whilst I understand that many farmers feel resentful having to undertake work that was previously done by the EA, I think we have to accept that government cuts over the last 10 years have meant this work's unlikely to be done unless we take it on ourselves. And the only other option is to see crops flooded on a regular basis. As the setting up of an internal drainage board for the area seems a very long way off, the 10-year permit means we can now ensure that water continues to move through the system as it should, and we can identify problems or blockages before they cause trouble and aren't waiting on a third party to undertake the work. And working together as a group of farmers under a single permit means we can also coordinate what we do, although it is reliant on each farmer following the remit of the permit. I'm happy to take any questions, and if anyone wants to contact me, I'm more than willing to share details of the information we compiled for the application. I think the main lesson we learned from this whole process was to include as much information in as much detail as we could and consider all things that might not be needed now, but might be needed 5 years ahead. So in many ways, it's looking at problems and being able to identify them and tackle them before they get any worse. So that's been the main advantage to having the permit, is we've got a bit more flexibility in being able to sort things out rather than waiting on a third party to do it. Okay, thank you.